All right, I'm joined by our senior editor, Alex Sear, our managing editor, Katelyn Tocci, and to round out the group chat for today's very special episode, we're getting a special appearance from our senior news editor, Jessy Carveth, and we're only going to talk about one thing today, guys. We are assembling to do a complete unpacking, a review of the Netflix docuseries Sprint, which just dropped its 6-episode run in the last couple of days, and 3 out of 4 of us have binge watched it. And then Alex Sear dropped the ball and didn't do his homework. Now you were off camping in the wilds of Canada on Prince Edward Island, so you didn't have a Wi-Fi connection. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot to Alex, and the first part of our chat about Sprint is going to be Alex asking us the burning questions he has as both a running nerd and someone who's psyched to see this Olympic content. And then we'll do a roundtable where we talk about how we felt about the show and unpack it in great detail. There will be some, if you can call them spoilers, if you can call something that already happened in the past, when it comes to the World Championships and last year's Diamond League events, there will be some spoilers along the way. But I think even if you knew nothing about it and we're ruining who won the World Championships in 2023 for you, I think it's still definitely worth watching and super compelling. So let's get right into it now. All right, Alex, take it away. Ask the questions that you want answered about Sprint.
Oof, okay. Well, by my own inertia, I'm going to watch this. So all you can do is send me downhill and deter me. So let's hear your takes. What gets me excited about these sports documentaries that seem to happen everywhere now is the characters. We always end up cheering for someone and we end up hating someone else. It seemed like in the preview, the hero was going to be Shelly Ann Fraser-Price and the villain was going to be Sha'Carri Richardson. Is that what happened? Did you all have a favorite? Katelyn, who was your favorite?
I don't know, Alex. I don't know about those predictions. We'll see. We'll see what everyone else has to say. No, I absolutely had a favorite. And going into it, I was unsure but the second I saw her and she started interacting with everyone, it was Gabby Thomas.
Gabby Thomas?
Gabby Thomas, yes. Gabby Thomas, the 200-meter sprinter. And the reason why I feel like afterwards when I was going over and I was reflecting, going over my notes and thinking, why is it that I liked her so much, is I think because I felt that competition-wise, I could relate to her very well. Because she doesn't come off with that like big, arrogant persona. You know, she's really nice to everyone. She's nice to her competitors off the track, right? She gets along. It seems like she gets along with everyone. She's always smiling. She's having a great time. She's laughing, enjoying everything. But she said that when she gets on the track, she said something along the lines of like, I go in for the kill. Like, I will kill my competitors, she basically said. It was pretty strong. So I don't think I would go that far, but I feel like in the trail running community, like I know all of my competitors and the people that I'm literally going to go head to head with for any podium position in all of the races, at least here in Costa Rica. We all know each other so well because we're a pretty small community. And, you know, we get along. We'll even like train together every once in a while, go on some long runs. But I get to that starting line and I just like transform. Not that I'm going to kill my competitors, everyone. Like,
but you might seriously injure them.
But I might seriously injure them. So I literally have this competition chip. And people have said that I kind of turned to a monster on the trail. So I feel as though like I could really relate to her. She had a super nice personality, but she was like not pulling out. Like she was pulling out all the stops to be the champ. Like she needs to be the champ.
So you like Gabby Thomas because you see yourself in Gabby Thomas. Now, Michael, you've always reminded me of Noah Lyles. So is that your guy?
Oh, man. I've got that main character energy, just like Noah Lyles.
No one said he was mean. Yeah.
I hope I'm not I don't play the psychological games that Noah Lyles obviously is a master at playing. As we got to see in this series, I found him really compelling. I actually found him, this may surprise you, I found him a little bit more likable than I thought I would. If you follow track and field at all, you kind of know his story, you know his antics. He's like a big personality, very arrogant. He's someone who, and as they touch upon in the series, he's someone who puts out crazy and wild prognostications about his own performances. He's a guy who's like, I'm going to run 1910 and 960 for the 200 and the 100, which is like, those are world records. Those are better than Bolt times, and that's madness. And he catches a lot of flack for it, but he's also somebody who says the thing that people are thinking he says the quiet part out loud. Like, for example, he famously was quoted at World Championships last year saying that, the NBA players, when in basketball, when they win a championship, they call it a world championship, and that's BS. He's like, I'm actually competing against everyone in the world in track and field. And in basketball, who are they competing against in the NBA? It's just other Americans, which obviously like got the attention of some NBA players. And he's one of these guys. He's like he's trying to be the greatest showman, right? He says this throughout the series. He's like, I am going to elevate the sport of track and field, and I am going to sort of transcend what this sport is and drag the sport along with me. And he's trying real hard, and he's actually kind of succeeding at it to a certain degree. Like, Exhibit A is this series. Like, he is a huge component of this series, and he's also willing to kind of be maybe the villain in certain people's eyes as well. I don't know. This is a good question for you guys. Like, did you like Noah Lyles? Did you find him to be the villain? What did you think of him as a character? I think he's like really compelling and really important, but is he a good guy or is he a bad guy?
I think he's really important for the sport, and he is trying to move it forward, which I think is really important for track and field. But I did find him a little bit mean, you know. There were times when he would start talking smack, and it'd be really mean smack, and I'm like, you don't have to say that. That could hurt some feelings, and maybe that's just because I'm bad at trash talking, and so I don't do it and I don't participate. But yeah, I found him a little bit mean. But I mean, to be fair, he is quite good, so I guess that gives him a little more wiggle room to talk the talk, since he can walk the walk for the most part. But
Jessy, you're Canadian, as am I, is Michael. We don't trash talk. We don't know how to trash talk.
You're polite.
We're polite. Yes. I think that's why they skimped on Canadians for this series. No Andre DeGrasse. I couldn't believe it.
He'd be too nice.
Yeah, he doesn't make for good TV. When Andre DeGrasse won his Olympic gold, what did he do? He looked inside the camera and waved at his kid. That's awful TV. Come on.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is probably the reason why he didn't get the phone call. Well, I think the main reason is that he suffered a lot of injuries in the last couple of years, and I think it's a big question mark whether or not he's going to make it to the final and win a medal, because obviously they're fashioning this series around they're hoping the eventual podium finishers in the Olympics. So I think he just maybe eliminated himself by virtue of the fact that he just wasn't healthy, but also he's like a really nice guy. And they already have one really nice guy in this series, Zarnell Hughes, who's the British sprinter, 100 and 200 meter runner. And he's kind of Noah Lyles' punching bag throughout this series, which is really weird because it's like, dude, he's a nice guy. He's such a nice guy. Like, there's this weird moment where they're focusing on Hughes. He's one of the main characters of the series, and they follow him into his apartment, and he's hanging out with his partner, and he's got this like full on flight simulator thing because he's like obsessed with flying. And so he's got this like whole video game flight simulator setup in his living room, and he's like literally just flying like a 747. He's like, we're now cruising at 29,000 feet, get comfortable. And it's like so weird.
Oh yeah, he does the whole pilot. That's right. Yeah. The spiel. Yeah. I remember
it's nice, and it's weird, and it's nice. It's like, this is a man that has complexity and depth and interests outside of running, and he's maybe not necessarily completely and totally megalomaniacal and obsessed with being the best sprinter and the fastest man in the world. Whereas Noah Lyles lets you know over and over again in this series that is what
all
he
he wants.
That's everything to him.
Yeah.
What about the opposition on the women's side? Because that's what they play up a whole lot in the trailer, is the Sha'Carri versus Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce. So the young, wild sprinter versus the seasoned vet mother of however many. Does that shine through, or is that just more trailer fodder?
Yes. Okay. The trailer did, because I think I did mention in our last podcast actually about how they were very much showing the difference, or trying to kind of portray Sha'Carri Richardson, and they, like, completely differently. The mom, Jamaican, who's 35 years old, by the way. I had no idea she was 35 years old. She's incredible. Oh my God. So 35-year-old runner and a 20-something-year-old runner. Yeah, I didn't feel there was that intense competition between them. I almost felt there was more competition. Like, I felt the most competition with Sharika. Instead, I felt like she was the one that everyone was after, and she was the one that everyone was going to need to beat. Because remember, spoiler alert, when they're in the Jamaican finals, right, and they're going through the whole thing with who's coaching with who and MVP, and Sharika's still the MVP athlete. She has a lot on her shoulders to try to get that champion. So I felt more competition with Sharika than I did with Shelly-Ann. I don't know if you guys got that same feeling, but I felt that was more the head-to-head butt than with Shelly-Ann.
Yeah, I thought that maybe the coolest part of this entire docuseries is getting to see a behind the scenes of how sprinting in Jamaica works, the politics of it, the characters behind the scenes, the coaches, the different groups, and in particular, this one group that you alluded to, Katelyn, MVP, which is like a sprinting club in Kingston that has produced like all of the global champions and Olympic medalists for like the last 20 plus years. And it's these two eccentric brothers, the Price brothers, that are, did I get the names right? Yeah, the Price brothers, right? That are the kind of masterminds behind this. And then all of these women, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, Sharika Jackson, Elaine Thompson-Herah, they have all been members of MVP. And the philosophy of MVP is, it's like this, you're training in a group. It's like you're not bigger than MVP. You're just part of it. And inevitably, two of these three top level sprinters in the world have left that group because they felt they were bigger than the group. And so you've got Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce left, and then you've got Elaine Thompson-Herah left as well. And then the only one left standing representing this hallowed club is Sharika Jackson. And you're just like, and she is, to me, I thought, a really endearing character, somebody you really want to root for. She's got no ego. She's just an incredibly coachable person, you can tell. And she's obviously at the peak of her powers right now. And so there's this weird, like, political power dynamic between these three women. And you got to see just how it all unfolds in Jamaica and like on the ground floor in Kingston. I thought it was super cool. And I'd never seen it so well documented before. So I thought that was a really special element of the series that got me really excited. I was like, I just want to know more about that. I want to know more about this subculture of sprinting in Jamaica. It was really neat.
Yeah. I was going to say, that was actually one of my notes, is that I wanted to see a bit more of like behind, like the work and the life behind the competitions. Like I found like it was a lot of clips of them, like at the meets and listening to music and stuff like that. But I think it'd be nice to kind of delve more into, I guess, like the origin stories and what goes on behind the competitions in the lead up. Like I know there was some of it, but I'd like to see more of it, I think.
Yeah, but there was like minimal training. Like we saw a couple of things.
Yeah.
Like I kind of want to like, can I get some more inside scoop or more tips on how you guys train? Not just like, okay, we're in the gym using like shake weights and whatnot.
Yeah, or you see them do like 2 starts and that's it.
Yep,
and it's
exactly.
like, oh, I'd like to know like a bit more than just you at the track bopping out to your tunes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we're all distance runners / cyclists, people who are in the sport or adjacent to the sport. So to me, I'm guessing I will resonate with it because of that, but I'm wondering who else is this for? Like, was this filmed specifically for a sprinter, or do you think it's more like The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, where most people enjoyed it even if they didn't play basketball or never played basketball? Like, Michael, who do you think the target audience was for this?
I think the target audience is a general audience. I think that Netflix and the producers that made this, and we should say they made Drive to Survive, the really successful F1 focused docuseries, as well as they've done this for the PGA, for golf. They did it for tennis, and for the Tour de France for cycling as well, with a great deal of success. So they have a well-honed formula. They know how to create really compelling drama around sport for a broad audience, and I think this nails it. The editing of this was really well done. Like, it just it feels like watching a really sophisticated action film in terms of how it was edited, like one of the John Wick films, or like the Mad Max Fury Road. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It was extremely well edited with like a lot of just a lot of cuts and whip pans and using the graphics in a really cool way. The soundtrack for this series was really good. Like, they must have spent a small fortune on the music rights, and that's a really important component, right? Because it's supposed to represent. This is supposed to be interesting for people in their 20s, right? Because this is documenting, for the most part, athletes in their 20s, with the exception of Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce. Which is like just representing us old folks.
I love it.
Yeah, and so I think that this did a really good job at just casting the net really wide, which is a dangerous thing to do in 2024 because everything is niche and there's no monoculture anymore. And it's a big question mark whether or not, everyone's going to watch the Olympics like they used to back in the day when there was only like 3 channels and everyone watched the Olympics because you didn't want to be left out. And it was the only thing to watch. But I think that I can't think of anybody who would not find this compelling because the characters were really well explored and explained, and they were able to create these dramatic stakes with the editing where it was like, okay, we're going to start in 2023 in the summer we're going to explain what these Diamond League races are, which thanks to Netflix for doing the thing that World Athletics has struggled to do for like 20 fucking years, where it's just like, explain why this is compelling and why you should watch.
Yep. Follow
the story, follow these athletes, care about these athletes. Here's who these athletes are. Here's how their personalities differ. Here's some of the sport craft involved in racing and competing. Here's how they prepare. Here's the role of the coach. Here's how a coach operates. Here's their home life a little bit. Let's peer behind the curtain. So I thought it was like so compelling. And like episode 6, which is the cliffhanger where we're left at the end of the World Championships last year, I was just like on the edge of my seat, but I was actually lying in bed at like 11:30 last night watching the last episode. I was hanging off the edge of my bed, trying not to drop my laptop as I'm watching the 100 and 200 meter finals getting wrapped up in an event that I watched live and I already knew the outcomes, and it was still super compelling.
That's interesting that you already knew the outcomes and that you still wanted to see it, because I hadn't remembered and I just hadn't been as into it before. And like, we're runners and athletes, cyclists and so forth. So we're going to love this because we love the competition. We get into it. But I feel like Michael feels that anyone who watched this is going to be tuning in or at least paying attention to the updates of the Olympics. They're going to want to watch those 10 seconds and those 20 seconds, and they're going to want to know who wins. Because it wrapped you in, and I think it will wrap in an athlete, a non-athlete, someone who exercises, someone who doesn't, and hopefully inspire anyone who just wants to set any goal. And just kind of like motivate you to be like, wow, they do this amazing thing. Okay, I want to think about a goal. Like, I want to set a goal. Maybe it's not going to be, I finished the series and I was like, I want to be a sprinter. I'd be a horrible sprinter. But I was like, I have like 0 power, but I'm just like a long distance tractor. But I thought, wow, I could be a sprinter. I want to be a sprinter. This is so exciting. Look how buff they are. Look at those weights that they lift. Like, it inspired me to do something completely opposite of what I actually do. So I think it can inspire a ton of people just to look towards any goal, not being a sprinter, but just any goal.
Now, I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I have two mixed feelings.
Okay.
On this.
That's okay.
My first is like in the same boat as you guys. I think it's great for like the sport and everything because they did explain, like you said, a lot more than World Athletics ever has and whatnot. However, and this might be a bit of a take, I think it's more of a reality show than a sports docuseries.
But that's the idea. That's a good thing.
But my issue here is that I was trying really hard not to do this as I was watching it, but the entire time, especially as a cyclist, I was comparing it to the Tour de France one.
Right.
And I said this in my predictions as well, that I just didn't think it would go as well because it lacks the drama that cycling does. And here's why.
Okay.
Not much can happen in a 10-second race.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, it can't. Whereas in a cycling race, as much as I hate to say it, you're going to see drama. You're going to see crashes. People loved crashes. People love seeing people get dropped and have to come back. People love the climbs and who's going to get there first and the mechanicals and people getting hit by spectators, which is awful. It's awful. It's awful. But people love watching it. So I think, it was more of a reality show than I was like hoping for because I was like, I'm going to learn about sprinting. And I learned, but I found it was the personalities than the sport.
I feel like there's such an appeal to create something like that, especially on the Netflix side after seeing how well these raunchy and weird reality shows do, especially the dating ones, like the Love is Blind and those things. And so my fear was actually that they would go too far inside of the reality realm. And remember, I haven't watched it. Maybe that is what I'll think. But I was encouraged when I saw the cast of not only athletes, but the commentators, like the pundits who carry the show along, right? They really took great care in choosing some of the best and most knowledgeable sprinting heads in the world. Like on the list, you have Alison Felix, who's been around for a long time. You have Usain Bolt, obviously. You have Otto Bolden, who's been a world-class sprinter, but also maybe the best sprinting commentator out there, at least one of the best. To me, that screams at least some care taken around the actual science and the craft of the sport. Give me a little spoiler. Was Usain Bolt very involved, or did he give like 2 quotes?
I'd say he was moderately involved. I'd say moderately.
What does that mean?
Involved. But like,
you're being very diplomatic, Jessy. I think he was. I think they sat down with him and they probably got like 30 minutes or an hour, and he did all of his commentary in one take. And I don't think he's nearly as compelling a character when he's sitting in a chair in front of a camera than he is when he's on the track. I found there was a nice balance between Alison Felix, who's I've interviewed her before. She's a very lovely person. She's just like a really level-headed person who knows. She's obviously a consummate professional and a total champion. So she knows the ins and the outs of this. And she was very diplomatic, but also very pointed and was able to give you some insights. Bolden was great. But I thought Michael Johnson was like,
oh yeah,
I want to hang out with Michael Johnson, man. Like
he's so likable.
Yeah.
He was good.
Like,
I also thought that was such a smart play, especially with like the pro track league coming up, and then like with Noah Lyles being like, we want to move the like sport forward. I was like, I feel like this all just really ties in well with like moving the sport forward.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say that, I think that on the reality TV piece of it, I'll just add that how compelling would it be if you were to take Noah Lyles,
I know where this is going.
Zarnell Hughes, Fred Curley, and Marcel Jacobs, and you were to like force them all to live in an apartment together in a house together from training camp from here to Paris. Document it. Let's go.
No,
or
that's
or
the
or the women.
MTV
I mean, or the
Real
women
World.
as well, right? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
Lyles would drive them all like completely fucking insane by the end of it. But then he'd win because he's like that's part of his game, right?
All
He's
their
gonna-
brains would just
yeah.
melt out.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gonna psych them all out. Oh my gosh, you brought up basically the real world. Oh, only you and I know about that, Michael.
Well, I mean, the real world has a long legacy of
That's true.
like every single other reality TV show, right? So
Basically comes from the real world from MTV.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So I want to see
Funny.
like the real world sprinters edition because that would be just absolutely nuts.
Yes.
And although I think everyone would like walk away from that being like never again.
Yeah.
Everyone involved, at least. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I think you should pitch it to Netflix.
Yeah. Something tells me that the athletes involved wouldn't sign up for that.
No, they definitely. No, but
Just
I see
do
what.
it. Do it like it's one of those like romantic like Netflix shows where they don't tell everyone and then they all just show up.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Surprise! Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, Sha'Carri Jackson, you're stuck with Shelly Ann Fraser-Price and Sha'Carri Richardson for 2 months.
Can you
Good
believe
luck.
it? No.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't talk enough about Sha'Carri Richardson. She's like a super compelling character in this,
Yeah.
like very like an elemental figure in this. I mean, I know we know her story. We've it's pretty well documented. Although I noticed that Netflix, the producers were very careful to kind of sidestep
Yeah.
her being suspended and missing the last Olympics. They were just like, yeah, she didn't get the
Didn't
chance
go.
to compete in the last
Yeah.
games. It's
Yeah.
like,
Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like that's a
'cause
key. That's a key part of her story.
They didn't
like-
bring it up.
I personally think that it was complete bullshit that she got suspended for the reason that she did, which is for marijuana, testing positive for like cannabis use, which is so stupid. And because it's not a performance enhancing drug, especially for a sprinter. But obviously, because I think Netflix is playing nice with World Athletics, maybe they did them a solid and just was like, we're not going to really talk about this, which I thought was too bad. But she's like, I don't know what to make of her. Like, she's Jordan-esque in a way, because she's like making up villains and she's screaming at people and she's made the media into a villain.
It's
It's-
her world and we're all just living in it.
Yeah.
I love that.
She is someone who legitimately says shit like that, which is just absolutely wild. But I found her like she was must-see TV. I could not stop watching. I mean, I was very taken by the entire series, but
Yeah.
she was someone that I'm like, I find her very compelling. She's so hot and cold. Not sure how healthy her approach is, because it's like, I must defeat my enemies, real and perhaps perceived. And then she obviously is extremely hard on herself when she loses. Whereas
Yeah.
like by contrast, someone like Lyles, like you could tell that there's a calculated nature to his bravado. Whereas I think with Sha'Carri Richardson, it's all feels all the time.
And you're totally rooting for her, right? I mean, at least I was completely rooting for her, like the whole time. I just wanted her to be the one. So that's how like, I know that she had that like firecracker of a personality, and like Michael's saying, like she's either like completely on or then she's off because maybe something didn't go her way. But she's just like, you want her to be the one. She makes you really fall into that with her, and just like such a big, fun personality. But yeah, you can see that also, you know, when she falls, you know, she hits hard. And she said something, another one of her quotes, and this brings me back to our last podcast when we were talking about the trials and, you know, like the one shot. And she said it. She said, you know, it's one shot, you don't get a do-over. You know, so she just seems so hard on herself. I mean, she's right. But she also seems like when it doesn't go her way, she's probably super hard on herself. And I bet it's hard for her to get out of that.
Yeah, I thought that the dynamic she had with Dennis Mitchell, her you know, well-known sprinting coach in the U.S. is it's a curious one, because I think Mitchell's like clearly, obviously a very good coach, but like there's a lot of kind of like weird mind games going on, a lot of us versus them, a lot of kind of like, you know, very much focused on beating the Jamaicans and kind of making them in the enemies in their mind. And that is intriguing. And there's definitely a little bit of that as well from the Jamaican side as well. So there's definitely that rivalry going on, which is cool to watch and fascinating. I'm not really sure if they're going to be like teaching Mitchell's approach to coaching an athlete in 10 years, say. I don't know if it's like passing all the safe sport barriers going forward, but I think that she is a fascinating character and somebody who, although I will say the series, do you guys think that like maybe they kind of let her sort of blow in the wind a little bit? And I think they kind of asked the question, like, is she unhinged? Like there was a little question mark in the series. Like, are we sure she's okay? Cause like there was that during World Championships, they linger on her excoriating the guy from Let's Run, Jonathan Galt, has a guest starring role, probably not one that he is super excited about, where he asks a question and she's just like, the media, you guys are the fucking problem here. Like she just like really like lays into him. And she's like kind of like the media is out to get me moment. And it's really weird. And it's really kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I think that this is the role the media has. They've got to ask these questions, right?
I was going to say, I don't think he was being that mean. He was just stating a fact and following it up with a question. Dude's
just doing his job, right?
Yes, I guess.
And maybe this is part of her approach to, it's like, she's like it's like she's like drawing energy from all of that, this idea that like the media is out to get her, and she's just sort of like pulling this energy in, and then she goes to the track and she just like explodes it onto the track. And maybe that is her strategy, and it tends to work. And then it can kind of backfire, which it has happened with her particularly in the 200, which is not really her event, but yeah, totally fascinating character. But I did find that like the docuseries was kind of like where the producers were kind of like, they were doing there was a little bit of a moment where they're like, okay, we'll let the viewer decide whether or not this is a grounded person. And I'm not really sure how I feel about that, because I know a lot of this stuff is this like kind of scripted reality TV, which is effectively what this is. They craft the narrative and they can create characters, and maybe those people aren't actually the way they are in real life, and you don't get to know unless you actually gain the perspective of that person and how they've been perceived.
So at this point you have a near unhinged sprinter, you have perhaps the most entertaining athlete in track and field, Noah Lyles. You have great track and field minds weighing in Michael Johnson and the gang. I'm convinced, okay, you did your job. I'm going to watch it.
Yes.
But the last question I'll throw your way is this a one-off, or is this a chapter of something else? And not only am I asking, will there be the season 2, or are we going to, but I'm also asking, are we going to see this in distance running? Are we going to see this in another leg or another part of track and field? Can we expect more to come out of this?
Walk, the race walking docuseries from Netflix.
Ooh, I buy the rights right now.
I don't think we're going to get that one. Well, yeah. What do you guys think? Jessy, what do you think? Do you think it's?
I think like the 1500 would be sick. It's like my favorite race to watch.
Yeah.
Agreed. And the characters right now, right now, you'd have Inga Brixen, you would have Josh Kerr, and then New Goose, who's lost in it all. Oh yeah. I agree.
Would be super interesting. And there you go, Jessy. I know it's not a bike, it's not a cycling race, so it wouldn't be that long, but it's longer than 10 seconds. We get some minutes. We get to minutes.
And maybe not hoping for it, but maybe we'll see a fall or two.
Well, yeah, because the 4-lapper allows a little bit of an evolution in each race, and I think that that's an element of sprint that I enjoyed, but also I see your critique of that, Jessy, where it's like I really liked that kind of like in the end, particularly in the last couple episodes, we like zoomed down to track level and we're like, now we're going to watch the 100-meter final, and then it just, I mean, the downside to that was like, A, I've seen this race before. B, the way they documented it wasn't that, well, there was nothing new. There was no new sort of technical way of showing the race. It's not like they had special drones in the air and it was like these crazy slow-mo close-ups of each of the athletes. There was nothing kind of like dynamic and new about how it was shown, except they were able to do slow motion from the cameras that pre-exist, and then they're able to kind of like pause for a second and like, you know, you're kind of gathering this sort of like well of emotion as like you're 60 meters in, and then you see, you know, Sha'Carri Richardson like take off with this closing 40 meters. But I did enjoy that. It was just like, okay, here's the race and now it's over. And you could sort of like devour that and digest that and then sort of exhale. And that it was literally a breathtaking experience, but it would be kind of cool to have longer events. I'd love to see a marathon one. I think the problem with the marathon might be compelling characters. I think this is a huge component to sprint. Is sprinters historically have always been known as the like, you know, the heavyweight prize fighter big personalities that dominate the Olympics. It's the centerpiece of the Olympics for a reason. You're dealing with huge personas, and this show definitely delivers that. They're definitely big personalities.
Yeah, like when I said and I compared it to Tour de France, and I was like, oh, it's not, like it doesn't involve the sport as much as it does the people. Like, I think the personalities that they had were the reason that it's still going to be successful. Like, the personalities will carry it, whereas if you have like dull personalities in a 10-second race, like there's not much to see there.
I mean, I'd love to see a marathon version of this, and I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'm just not sure. And I actually think it would be pretty compelling to watch because they've got a lot of time to deal with in the marathon. So there's like all these sort of like, it'd be neat to watch all the training behind the scenes, the lives of these people. It'd be nice to bounce around between, because in this case it was Jamaica and the United States, right? Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with the top handful of sprinters in the U.S., the top handful of sprinters in Jamaica, men's and women's side. You could do the same thing. You could go like Kenya, Ethiopia, and then you could also do the U.S. and you could grab an athlete from Europe as well and kind of get this like really interesting like global balance, which would be intriguing. I'm just not sure.
I was going to say, and I think you can get more of their training behind it too. Like if you think of like Clayton Young's YouTube series, like something like that, but with a bunch more people and some racing.
But that's the thing. There's a weird appeal around monastic training styles too. You know, these people don't have to be super loud and go on Jimmy Fallon like Noah Lyles did. I remember back in the day, Cam Levins, the Canadian marathoner, had this driven series on Flow Track that was, I guess, like a mini version of this Netflix show, right? It was like a 15-minute, maybe a two-parter, just overview of his life and training and how he balanced his 3 runs a day with the rest of his life. And people would probably go in it having the question, you know, what else can this person do around his running? How do you balance that with everything else? And I think there was a weird appeal to that too. So it might look really different, but I think a series on marathoning would actually do pretty well.
I think that there's this series sprint did 3 things really well. First of all, it showed the performances and the track level experience really beautifully, like obviously super high quality, like 4 or 8K HD cameras, super slow-mo, some of the best people in the business filming it, incredible soundtrack. I mean, just like beautifully edited together. It was just like a very deluxe package, right? So it felt like it was like premium when you're watching it. And then it's also giving you this inside scoop on like who these people are and what their lives are like. We get to see their homes. Yeah. We get to see that Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce drives a really nice Mercedes in Kingston. So she's like clearly like one of the wealthier, more influential people in her country, right? And, you know, we get to see that Noah Lyles seems to live with his mom, which is weird and kind of cool, I guess. And like has got all of his like world championship medals in a running shoe box, just like where I keep my finisher medals, and like, you know, kind of like really relatable in a weird way. Like these details are really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is it explains the details of how the sport works. So it's like, okay, for those who don't know, there's this thing called the Diamond League, and this is how it works. And they go to Paris and they go to Poland and whatever. And then there's a World Championships, and then the Olympics comes the following year. And there's heats, there's a semifinals. The top 2 make it in automatically in each heat, and then there's 2 time qualifiers, sort of the fastest losers or whatever they call it. They explain all this stuff so that when you're watching it as somebody who maybe doesn't know anything about this, you're like, okay, I now understand all this. And now the people that watch sprint will go into the Olympics and they'll be like, I know how this all works, and I know who these characters are, and I have an emotional relationship to them as human beings. I know a little bit of their backstory, and I'm really excited to see them race. And that is super powerful and something that's been lacking in track and field since the beginning of time. So I don't know. I'd love to see it being done for the marathon. I think it would just absolutely change distance running if they did it. I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if there's a business case for it. Although a lot of people run marathons, so maybe there is. But it'd be cool, and Katelyn will like this. An ultra version of this would be awesome.
Of course. And also because I think you get some pretty eccentric and exciting personalities in the ultra world.
Speaking of falling, right?
Yeah, because you've got to be a little, and I can say this because I'm an ultra runner and one of those crazies that run 100-milers and all that. You've got to be a little, what's the word? You got to be a little crazy to want to run for an entire day straight without stopping or sleeping or resting. I think an ultra one would be awesome because we've got a lot of amazing, very cool personalities out there, and to kind of also do what Noah Lyles wanted this sprint documentary or this docuseries to happen with trail running. Maybe get it even, it's growing, but it could also grow more and get people a little more in tune to it. So it would be very cool.
So as we wait for all of those,
yes.
I guess the only ultra marathon in my future is the Netflix Ultra Marathon. Hopefully I watch it before next week. Maybe I'll share my takes. But you've done a good job, all 3 of you, to make me even more pumped to watch this thing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll watch TV for you anytime.
Absolutely.
Happily.
Yeah, so Sprint it's on Netflix now. It's 6 45-minute episodes, very, very bingeable. I think that's the takeaway from the 3 of us that have watched it for sure. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm really interested to see how all of these protagonists of Sprint do in Paris. And as we've reported on the site, it sounds like we're going to get, I think, at least 4 more episodes leading up to Paris, presumably with all of these characters following them in their quest for gold in the Olympics. So I can't wait for it.
Yeah,
I'm ready to watch it. Give me more, Netflix. I want more. And hopefully others want it as well, because that will just drive up the interest, right? The annoying thing is we'll never know with Netflix because they don't share how many people have ever watched any of their shows. You just have to sort of guess. Maybe if it appears in that top 10 that they do, that we'll know that that's a good sign and that's pointing towards more. It'd be cool if they did this every year. I highly doubt they will. It's one of the shitty things about the Olympics. It's this is something that will be once every 4 years, maybe. So, but on a high note, I think it was awesome. Actually, just quick rapid fire from the two of you. Who is your favorite athlete from this? Who are you most excited for Paris?
I'm sticking with Gabby Thomas.
I was going to say Gabby Thomas too. I'm excited to see them all though.
Yeah, me too. Because I also can't wait to see Sha'Carri Richardson. I really hope she takes gold. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's too exciting. There are too many.
Yeah, I was going to say Sha'Carri Richardson because I feel like if she wins Olympic gold, it'll be an extremely dramatic moment and very exciting. And she's just exciting to watch run. You guys notice that she just runs through. She's just the well of energy. She just runs through the finish and runs harder and faster through that finishing area than anyone I've ever seen in sprinting. I know they're running fast.
She should consider the 400.
She should, because she's
going.
It's kind of wild. Yeah.
She
So
can keep going around.
I'm excited for her.
Yeah.
I think actually Sha'Carri Jackson is sort of my favorite athlete out of all of these athletes. My takeaway, I leave watching this series thinking, I'm rooting for her. She's such a pro. She's clearly such a like a not that you need to be a decent human being to be a decent athlete, but she's got this like incredible internal kind of balance to her, and she's somebody who's like, I want to see this person I want to see her break a world record. She was like so disappointed at the end of the series.
Oh, because she wants to
breaking a world
break
record.
FloJo's record. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So cheering for her.
Rooting for
I'm
her,
excited
too.
for all of them now. All right, guys. I think we've covered off pretty much everything you need to know about Sprint. It's on Netflix right now. I'd say unanimous. Definitely watch it. It's going to be hard for you not to watch all 6 episodes in one shot. So maybe clear off an evening, a 4-hour stint to get through the entire series, because there's going to be more episodes coming. That, from what we know, we're going to get probably about 4 more episodes going into the Olympics in the next couple of weeks. And Alex, your homework assignment is definitely to give it a watch, and I'm curious to hear what you think about it. So next time we chat, next pod, maybe we'll let Alex give us a little quick 2-minute take, his little miniature. You can play Ebert for 60 seconds at the beginning of next pod and tell us what you think about it. All right, gang. Thanks for coming together, and make sure everybody who's listening here rate and comment on our pod. Give us a 5-star rating. It goes a long way. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. 10,000 plus subscribers now. Congratulations, Alex Sear. You're doing good work. He puts out new content every couple of days. I mean, we've got new stuff coming up. We've got a new video coming up later on this week. Alex, what's the video that's coming up, I think on Monday for us?
We're showing, profiling, talking about 3, what do I call them, misfits, 3 shoes from companies that we don't really know much about. They're new players in the shoe game. So we compare, contrast, talk about them a little bit. And yeah, please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Our 10,000 subscriber, my aunt. So shout out Aunt Marcia. I hope you're also listening to this podcast.
Nice.
Let's keep the good times rolling.
All right. And follow what Jessy does. She's cranking out the hits every day on our site. We're putting out new news items multiple times a day. In fact, as soon as we end this recording, I imagine we've got both Katelyn and I will have to pivot back behind the scenes and get behind the WordPress and keep editing away because we've got a lot of content coming. And subscribe to our newsletter. 160,000 people read it, which is incredible and always a bit daunting when we hit send on it at 5 a.m., 5 days a week. Something new in there every single day. And it's definitely worth subscribing to. Something we're really proud of here at Handbook. All right, until next week, thanks very much.